And Dynasty DNA Fantasy Football Summer Camp. We're coming back again with episode 3. We're keeping this rolling through the summer, and we got a special treat for you today. We're joined by our Dynasty DNA team member, great friend, and an awesome analyst himself, Mike Shanoudi. Mike, how you been doing? How's your summer been, man?
Been great, man. Been enjoying this time off, trying to decompress, getting ready for the fantasy football season. I know rookies just got to training camp, a couple of them, so I'm ready to rock. And listen, I'm an Orioles fan, so I'm enjoying baseball season once more. They're doing hot, they're doing great, so I'm excited. Thank you, boys, for having me first and foremost.
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, we appreciate having you on.
Of course. And then, like I said, I'll be here. I'll be talking anything you want. Fantasy football, basketball, hockey. You could just make this an entire sports-centric show if you want it.
I love it. That's why I love having you on, man. Like I said, you're a great sports mind and a great fantasy mind.
Thank you.
And if you want, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you got going on. I know you're with us. You're one of our writers and contributors. You're an awesome fantasy person. We're happy to have you. But what do you do all in all, and tell them what you're all about?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Shanu471. So that's SHNU471. I am under the umbrella of Four Corners. So that's at Four Corners Radio on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. We have everything under the sun, hockey, a lifestyle podcast, everything like that. But the podcast that I'm most proud of is Face of the Franchise, which I do with my friend from high school, Joey Dorian. And we talk everything football. We go through news, notes, and during the season we do that stuff. So we're on all streaming platforms. You can find us on the Four Corners Radio right now on YouTube. So you'll see our pretty faces as we talk about stuff and some emotions in there. We did have a big discussion 2 years ago about Mahomes and Lamar, and I won that bet of who was going to be a better quarterback. So far so good, and we'll see how that goes. But also I appreciate you guys. I am writing for you guys, so if you guys go to their websites and their articles, you'll see all the articles I've written. I do a lot of top 5, top 3 kind of player lists. I did do one the other day on Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson and who you should draft and redraft. So I appreciate it again, guys, for bringing me on and excited to talk football. So that's all I'm about. So.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. And we love your articles. Like I said, they're always just right to the point. You know what you're talking about. You hit your points. And I love how you always sprinkle variety in there. It's not just always Dynasty. You get a little redraft, maybe get a little bit of this and that. And I think that's great because it never hurts to have a variety. And honestly, man, we all love playing the leagues. I'm in redraft leagues. I'm in Dynasty leagues, best ball leagues. So the fact that you always put that over there and always hit that different flavor, I love that.
Of course. I mean, like we said, I think this is an over $1 billion now industry. There's like so many ways to play daily fantasy, best ball, redraft, dynasty, and they all have different strategies. But I always go to the one point I always say: know your league and know your league mates. You got to always know those two things. And
100%. We all know Muscles loves to rebuild, so we try to capitalize.
I'm in win now mode, man. I think I saw my comment in Discord. I was like, I just traded for Stephon Diggs, and it was a hefty price, but I'm ready to win now. So,
and it's all like the old saying goes: keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Exactly. Know those fans of very big teams. You can get a lot of value for certain players that you wouldn't in other places. So,
absolutely. We're gonna hop in, Mike, here, and we're gonna pick your brain.
Absolutely.
We're gonna start right off the hop. We're going to be talking about these running backs. We all know that the franchise tag deadline come and gone yesterday. 2 big names, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, did not sign their franchise tag. How do you feel about that? And how do you feel about them coming into many startups? I mean, we're getting close. We're talking, maybe within the next month, 3 weeks, a lot of startups are going to be happening. How do you feel about them 2 players?
So both these players, it's interesting. If we look at the franchise tag this year, it's an average of all those running back salaries. Right now, it's I think at $10.5 million. Yep. Both are asking $2 million more. I think it was like $12 million, right? And let's not forget, Saquon was a top 2 pick. And this offense runs through him. As much as we wanted to believe in Daniel Jones, we want to believe in this offense and Mack and Dayball and everything. They need Saquon on the field, and he's not an old running back. And the same with Josh Jacobs. I mean, we don't know what's going on with Jimmy G. We don't know what's going on with that offense with Josh McDaniels. I think these two, as you can say it, are very prolific in their offenses, and all they're asking is just a little bit more money that these guys just don't want to shell out because I hate to say it, Isaiah Pacheco ruined the whole thing. He's like the Chiefs won the Super Bowl with Isaiah Pacheco as their running back, but
And
everybody
Jerick
forgets
McKinnon. Yeah.
and McKinnon. But everybody forgets who the quarterback was. Like, it's Patrick Mahomes. We all don't have that luxury. So I also think the big thing for like fantasy leagues and everything, we're talking about two guys that you can draft in the first round or second round and be very happy as their RB1. And now I'm hesitant. I did a mock draft last night. I was at the turn. I was at the 12th pick. They didn't get picked, and they were at my spot. And I could have gone Jacobs and Saquon. But I actually went Adams and Diggs because I was like, I don't know what this will look like in a few days. Because, yeah, the reports are Saquon will report by week 1. That's what they say. But I heard, as Steelers fans, we heard that with Le'Veon, and he never showed up. So
Yeah.
and
It's like a nightmare.
it was an absolute nightmare. But our man James Conner got our back that year, so I'm okay with it. But Josh Jacobs is the same. I think he's holding out. I think he's just not going to show up because this has just been more disrespect left and right for him since he got to the Raiders. And he was in the parking lot apparently he was in the parking lot waiting for the extension with Max Crosby. It never came, and he started crying in the parking lot. So
Damn.
there you go. Some news right there. But it just shows the devaluation of this at the best position in fantasy football. In the real world, they're not getting respected at all. And it's two of the best. And I hate to say it. I hope they see week 1, but I will not be surprised if they don't show up week 1.
Yeah, I agree too. And the bad thing is, like with Saquon, is I was kind of a big advocate for Daniel Jones, and this hurts Daniel Jones if Saquon does not play.
Right.
I'm like you. That whole offense just runs through Saquon, and boy, oh boy. Now my other concern is too. It seemed like New York and Saquon possibly could get something done. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
But is there a chance if they do play? Do you think they're going to play through some of these little like, oh, my ankle's hurting some, and you kind of have to think outside of the box. I mean, they might not play through it because if they didn't get what they wanted, their bag, then why would they put that on the line?
Right. And let's not forget they're playing for the next contract, even with the
Yeah.
franchise.
Yep.
So maybe that ankle hurts a little bit more, like you said, or that
Yep.
shoulder. Right. I mean, shoot, we're talking about two teams who, frankly, are not, in my opinion, Super Bowl caliber teams right now. And if they're not in the running or in the playoff running, why would they go through that? And hopefully they'll find a team that will pay them. I mean, we saw Miles Sanders finding it, and man, I'm drawing a blank. Miles Sanders and somebody else got actually
David Montgomery.
David Montgomery, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Contracts with their new teams, and now they're in great situations. So, man, we could see a shift. But let's be honest, a lot of running backs are not very happy when they're tweeting.
No.
Jonathan Taylor, Najee. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm like you. I think the Josh Jacobs one's the messier of the two, if I had to put my finger on it. I don't think Saquon's happy. And I mean, I thought it was a little better than it was, but it's turning out maybe it wasn't as good. But I do think the Giants as an organization will eventually figure it out with him. But the Raiders, man, I'm really skeptical with Josh Jacobs because they have made moves like this in the past. They just do off the wall things. And, he wants to be there. He wants to play. Like you said, he was pretty emotional about it. But I'm like Andy, if these guys are a little dinged up, how committed are they going to be? And can you blame them? And that's just it as a fantasy thing. A lot of people are saying like, this isn't a big deal. They'll be there for week 1. But what percent of them will actually be there mentally, physically, emotionally? And that's always something to consider. I honestly I think it's a bigger deal than some people are making it to be.
Exactly. And we saw the third one in this wheel, Tony Pollard. He's the one who's going to sign his franchise tag and be ready to go. I think it's the only reason why he signed it is because he wants to prove he could do it without Zeke. But the other two already proved it. They both had all-pro years, give or take, all Pro Bowl years. I mean, They deserve it. I mean, they honestly deserve it. Who would have thought Josh Jacobs last year was going to be the third best running back in fantasy and doing what he did. I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity that these guys are not getting paid how they should be paid. And I think I read something in 2008, the franchise tag was way higher than it was now. And like a lot of people like Derrick Henry are vouching for these guys saying like, oh, why would we have the running back position anymore? This is insane. Like two of the best are not getting paid. One being a pick over Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Sam Darnold. Let's not forget. Saquon got picked before all that, and Giants needed a quarterback. And I just don't get the rationale in not paying these guys. But I guess you gotta see it for what it's worth. So
definitely. And touching on some more running backs. I mean, we're got a lot of guys, veterans in free agency here. I want to get your opinion on them. Where do you think they land? And the big four out there still are Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, Zeke, and Leonard Fournette. But we'll start with Dalvin Cook real quick.
Yeah.
Where do you think Dalvin Cook ends up?
So I think right now, a running back who's 27 years old. I mean, talk about a guy who had over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. There's one guy that's always wanting another running back in his room. And I don't know how you guys feel about Ramondre, but I feel like Bill Belichick is lurking, waiting for to get that Dalvin Cook on his team. Just wants the price to go a little bit down just to add him. So that's a run-heavy team. So if you look at a team with Dalvin Cook and Ramondre Stevenson, I think it's fantasy gold for both guys. I think both would be great in that offense. I think we talk about a quarterback like Mac Jones, who's I guess his best wide receiver now is. It's not. I mean, I couldn't tell you who's his best wide receiver.
Right. I mean, they're paying Parker like he is, but I don't know.
Parker is their best guy, and Jonnu Smith, and I think they still have Hunter Henry. So at that point, like you got to run the ball, and I think Dalvin Cook would fit great in that system behind a great offensive line. I think him and Ramondre would be that 1-2 punch, like him and Damian Harris. So why not see him in a nice New England uniform? I know a lot of people will hate that, especially the Miami fans, but it's okay. You guys got Mostert and Wilson and now A-Train, so you're good.
See, for me, it could definitely happen. I'd be lying to say, like, I have a real good idea. I still think it could be Miami, and my reasoning is these guys not getting paid. Maybe Dalvin lowers his expectations just a tad to get something done.
Right.
We all know that he's came out and said he'd love to play for Miami. For a dark horse team, I actually have Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I think that's a big shot in the dark, like a dart throw, but somebody like Dalvin Cook in Chicago, man, I think that could be really nice. They have quite a bit of cap room left. And I mean, putting him with Fields, I mean, it could be pretty good.
I like that. I don't hate that. I got somebody else going there in those 4, but we'll get to him. But I like that Dalvin Cook, Fields, DJ Moore. Like that's a prolific offense in a division. Nobody knows who's going to win now. There's no Aaron Rodgers, so
yeah.
So.
And it seems like there's still a lot of skepticism on Fields as well.
Right.
So you got to know that he knows that, Chicago knows that. So this could really help ante up the things. I mean, I like Roschon Johnson, but he is a 4th round pick, hasn't proven nothing. Right. So it's a long shot with him as well.
You get Dalvin Cook outside, you get a nice RPO option with Fields. I mean, that's deadly. And then, like I said, they're playing on a 4th. I think they're playing on a last place schedule. So at that point, they're doing what they can, and they can run that division. If Fields takes that next step, their defense got better too. So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, that is a great landing spot. I didn't think of that. But that's crazy. I think that would be an amazing offense. I'd take every piece of that puzzle for sure. So.
I think Dalvin Cook, we can all say at least I think there's a real good chance he lands in the AFC East. It's just no matter what team. We've heard so many. I mean, so you just never know with that. But going over to the next player, Kareem Hunt. This is an interesting one. This one here, I think, could add some value to a team, especially a winning team that could use a second back, maybe a little bit of a pass-catching guy. Where do you see Kareem Hunt ending up?
So actually, it was funny because Andy said Chicago. This is my Chicago pick right here. So this is my guy. So they did sign Deontay Foreman. They do have, like you guys said, Roschon Johnson. I think Kareem Hunt still has some juice left in those legs. I mean, talk about a guy who will take a 1-year deal, do his thing, and then after that, they'll figure out the running back situation next year. And keeping with the cap, they'll have enough cap room if Saquon or Jacobs or any of those guys doesn't want to re-sign with their teams next year. They can go out and get them and add them to the puzzle if Justin Fields is that good. You know what I mean? I mean, we saw a reason why Nick Chubb didn't get 20 carries, which is criminal, that Kareem Hunt would take some and get the passing work and all that stuff. And he still can go at the goal line and do what he does. So I think Kareem Hunt is a great landing spot for Chicago. I will give another team, and it's in the same division. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I think him, and I don't know what their confidence level is with Madison at this point, but having Kareem Hunt, like you said, TJ, as a second runner behind Madison, we know Madison has also a history of injuries. He can step in and be right there with you, right there with them. And I think wherever Kareem Hunt goes, if it's the second, if he's the RB2 to that depth chart, that starter goes down, he is the first person everybody's trying to get on the waiver wire if he's out there. He is a guy, if you have on his bench, you're happy to put him in the starting lineup. So Chicago or Minnesota, give him a call.
I like both of those. See, these are good options. I like what you're coming up with. I think, Ann, you said Kareem Hunt. You like Cincinnati as a team, possibly?
Yeah, I have him at Cincinnati. And a big thing for me is Joe Mixon's kind of shown that he lacks third down, protecting his quarterback. And they lose P. Ryan. So Kareem Hunt's somebody I feel like come in and catch some passes. We know they want to throw the ball. And we still don't know. I don't think there's going to be suspension for Mixon, but he was in a little bit of legal trouble as well. It's just kind of been brushed under the rug. He since restructured his deal. He's going to be in Cincinnati this year. So I think that could be a little bit of a sneaky landing spot. One I've seen on Twitter, I don't think it'll happen, was Washington going back with Eric Bieniemy, but I don't really think that would happen. I hope it doesn't because I'm an Antonio Gibson truther. So any hope that I have left, which is just a damn smidge, is gone if that happens.
I have Brian Robinson on my dynasty team, so I hope you're wrong. I hope that's wrong too. I cannot have this. I hear the Gibson noise. I'm like, listen, Brian Robinson, let's hope you can do something. But I think that's a great landing spot. The Cincinnati Bengals and that whole rivalry thing where it's like, I want to see the Browns twice a year. They even bring me back. So I think Mixon is, like you said, we're going to play that whole, I don't know if you guys remember the Zeke stuff. We're going to play that. Are you going to get suspended now? Are you going to get suspended now? And then, maybe week 6, we see a suspension. But right now, if you're trying to draft Mixon, I think you can do it confidently. Again, another guy who has injury problems. Hunt comes in with Joe Burrow and the three-headed monster and Boyd, Chase, and Higgins. Why not? Put him in your lineup.
Yeah, and that's another. It's a great point. Like they're a team that could go to the Super Bowl this year.
Yep.
As much as it pains for me to say that, being a Steelers fan, I mean, you gotta be real.
Yeah, I mean they are fighting against the Chiefs and the Bills. They're not fighting against us and the Ravens anymore at this point. So
until a team can make a step and maybe prove it differently, I agree.
Yeah.
But moving on to the next guy, Mike, Zeke. I mean, he might be the most flamboyant on this list. Definitely maybe the most flashy. Where do you think Zeke ends up? Because, I mean, these next two guys, I mean, I don't know if the market might be as big for them.
So it's funny you say that because I thought long and hard about a different team. I thought about like just any other team. I think he goes back and puts that star helmet on his head again. I think Dallas Cowboys bring him back in. I think Zeke has a kumbaya with Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy. They notice that Tony Pollard is the guy. Let me just stop that right there. But having Zeke as a backup and him knowing the offense and him having the year he had last year, I think he just knows that the market's not there. He's going to crawl back, and they're going to be like, you can be the goal line guy again. We're going to see a guy that looks like maybe Jamal Williams last year. Who knows? But at the same time, like Zeke should be a Cowboy. I just don't see him being anything else. If there's one other team, maybe I can see him being like a Bronco or something crazy like that. But like he deserves to be a Cowboy just because who he is and what they've valued him in the past. He did okay last year. It's not like he did bad. It's just Pollard's the guy. He needs to know that's what it is, and he's just going to have to be the second banana. So I think we'll see a 1-year deal probably after like preseason game 3. So I like that. I think Zeke back as a Cowboy is going to happen. So
I could definitely see that.
I really like that because like we've been hearing like, oh, it ain't gonna happen. Like that would be the most Cowboys thing ever. You know, like it ain't gonna happen, and all of a sudden, oh, Zeke's back.
Right.
Here, like, that's Dak's best friends. I watched that Amazon Prime show about it's like their Hard Knocks, and him and Dak are best friends. Dak will vouch for him. Dak will be like, we don't have a second running back. Why don't we bring that Zeke guy back? You know what I mean? Like that guy did pretty good for us. So
He knows the system already.
Yeah, I think that could definitely happen. I actually, if there's another team to choose, I'm going to stay in the AFC North. I have them going to the Ravens.
Oh.
And that's just because I do like Gus Edwards, but this is just such a Ravens move. I know TJ and I talked about it. Like, they brought in guys like Freeman, Justin Forsett, Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram. They're just kind of known for these last leg guys that, don't really have a ton in the tank, but just come along.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a great move. I think if there was a Ravens move out there, it would be him or Fournette, and I
Yep.
think Zeke is right up their alley. I think watching that whole, you remember that Freeman and like Murray and
Yeah.
and it was like a nut. It was like if you wanted a Ravens running back, just pick Lamar. That's it. That's all. It was crazy, man. And I think Dobbins is still hurting, if I'm not mistaken, going into training camp. So they're gonna.
Yeah, I know he had a cleanup procedure, and then he was upset with his contract, so which I don't really understand that whole issue because I like J.K. Dobbins, but to me, he really hasn't proven enough to get a payday like guys like Barkley and Jacobs. Not saying that he's asking for that, but
Still remember when I think we drafted Chase Claypool in front of him, and I was pretty upset. But at
me
this point,
too.
wash between both of them, so I'm okay with Najee, and we got what we got for Chase, so I'm cool with it. So.
Wasn't enough music at practice, Mike.
Oh my gosh, no more TikTok, thank God.
Well, going to the last one, and you brought him up, Leonard Fournette, old Lenny. Where do you think he ends up? I think he's the toughest one to predict out all these guys. You want to talk about someone that's probably on the last of their last legs? Lenny's definitely that guy. Do you think he finds a home, and do you think he comes back this year? And maybe he's done. What do you think?
So me personally, I think this is an in-season move. I think Leonard is going to sit there. I think a lot of teams, when injuries start piling up or they find out their guy is not the guy, they will sign him. I think really he's going to go to a place like the Chiefs, like Chiefs or the Bills. He's going to ride to a Super Bowl. That's all he wants to do. It's kind of like when we saw LaShawn McCoy. We saw Le'Veon Bell do that. And like a different position, but Antonio Brown doing it with the Bucs. He's going to go with the best situation that can get him a ring. Because, sure, he had one with Tom Brady. He was the bell cow. But I don't think the guy has enough to be the central piece of a running game. He'll give you that 1 yard tough in, or like you need that 3rd and 1. He's got you. Or protecting the quarterback because he's still pretty big. I agree. I think this is the last year we see him, or if not next year, maybe a year after that, just bouncing around or being signed to like these. There's no like 10-day contracts, but signing, being waived kind of thing. So I like to see him on a championship team. So I'll pick the Chiefs for now, and the Bills. So one of those places we'll love to have him at their backup or emergency running back kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I agree I think he is an in-season signing. I agree with that. I think out of the 4, he'll be the one that's the last to sign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to get any notifications on Twitter. Breaking news: Leonard Fournette signed with like the Miami Dolphins or something like that. One guy did predict, he's like, if one of these guys needed to go to the Steelers, they picked Fournette. So would you boys want him behind Najee and Jalen? I don't know. I wasn't too keen on that move. But.
No, not really. Lenny plays with fire, man. He's always coming into camp heavy, and like once you get older, like you gotta watch. I'm living proof.
He's crazy, man. Talk about like they call him Fat Lenny, but they call him Playoff Lenny at the same time. So he can win you some games in there. But
And I'll tell you, he's
Maybe
got
they rub his bald head for good luck.
he's got one of the best beard games in the league. Yo, you got to give him credit for that.
For real, yeah.
I hope nothing for the best for Leonard Fournette, but I think he's washed as it comes, man. It's washed. He's washed. I can't do it.
And before we get into the next question, I know Andy wants to ask you about Alvin Kamara, and he can do that in 1 second. Just reading some comments. Aiden Grover puts, "Sup, guys? I agree with both. Madison's a trap, and Zeke needs to come back on the cheap deal." I think, yeah, he's a big Dallas guy, so he definitely wants Zeke back. And he also said Jamal Williams is a great comp for him at this point in his career. I think he was talking about Zeke, possibly.
Yep.
And Eric Wenzel put, "Lenny, the new bus. Doubt that."
Hey, man, no, Bus gave us at least 100 yards and 3 touchdowns against Chicago this last year, so I don't see Leonard Fournette doing that at all.
No. But what I was going to ask you about with Alvin Kamara, so we know that he is down to a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah.
So do we think that, I know some people, even myself, I thought it could be up to like 10 games, and I've heard people possibly the whole season. How many games do you think he gets?
So in my honest opinion, I think they have this rule: if they plead guilty or they're fined not guilty at one point or whatever, they'll get 6 games. So I always go with the 6 games. We saw it with like DeAndre Hopkins with the PEDs. We saw it with Zeke and the domestic violence stuff, and we saw it with a bunch of other examples. Really. What really helped him a lot was pleading guilty and getting it down to a misdemeanor, and probably is going to shell out some money to this person. We're talking about one of the guys right now. If he gets 6 games, what do you do with that backfield? I have no idea. I think he's still one of the most dynamic players, and now with Derek Carr, I really like that offense. I know I'm a big Derek Carr truther, and I think he can make that offense better. And if it's one of those guys, when they're suspended, you just want to hold on to them. But that's going to be in your IR or that bench spot so long. So I think he still can do enough. I think he can be a guy, if you hold on to, he can win you a championship in fantasy football, being that guy that you waited on for so long, if you could tread water. For Dynasty, though, I think you try to sell him. I think you try to get what value you can for him. I think with this 6-game suspension and a lost year, he's getting older. We just talked about all these running backs getting older, not getting paid. He could be the next guy. He could be the next guy that's not going to get that big contract after having some stellar years. I mean, he did get his big contract a few years ago. I understand that. But, like, he's done so much to get another one that this year might be, I don't know, it might be the Miller season. They drafted a guy, and they brought in Jamal Williams, who we talked about. So, who knows? It might just be crowded. It might be just a backfield you want to avoid in fantasy altogether. But that 6-game suspension is so looming. It hurts because I love Kamara, but he did a stupid thing, and you win stupid prizes, like they say. So
it's a tough break for him. Like you said, he's not getting any younger. And we got news today that Kendre Miller's actually looks like he's going to start on the PUP.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So, I got a notification on Sleeper that he's on the PUP. So, now I don't know which PUP, if it's going to be the PUP into the season or just preseason. But if that's the case, Jamal Williams could be a nice value if Kamara were to miss the first 4 to 6 games.
I mean, I see all this with Javonte Williams missing the games and everybody calling Samaje Perine a great value because of the handpick to Broncos and the Sean Payton. I mean, like you said, Jamal Williams, I mean, look what he did last season. He can do it again with a good offense. I think Andy, you just saved somebody's fantasy season right there, and they probably just picked up Jamal Williams on like a wire thing in their dynasty. So,
so if you're listening, pick him up, guys.
Pick him up right now. He's a great value.
Andy's always dropping them sneaky little players in there. I like that.
That's a great pickup. If you guys hold on 1 second, let me check. No, somebody has it. It's a great value. I think Jamal Williams is a great value, so that's great.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And the next player I want to talk to you about, Austin Eckler. I mean, we heard the news that he resolved his contract situation a little bit earlier, but now we're hearing he's still unpleased. And when you look at it, when you add these numbers up, and I know Andy's got some things he wants to bring up with Austin Eckler about some other players that are making more money than him on a pure year per basis. I mean, outside of incentives and stuff like that.
Right.
It's almost insulting. And the guy isn't happy. I want to know how you feel about him and the whole Chargers situation. And do you think he leaves the Chargers next year? And do you like him this year with what's going on?
Oh, 100%. I'm to your one question, like, do I like him this year in fantasy? I'm still drafting him behind Christian McCaffrey. If I'm drafting running backs, you know what I mean? And I think he still holds value. I think he shows up. I think he plays. He plays on this contract that he has. He is visibly upset with what's happening because he has been a vocal point of that offense too. But let's not beat around the bush. Justin Herbert's going to ask for a massive contract. I mean, we just saw what Burrow was asking. I think he got, and Lamar was asking. Herbert's right there. He's going to ask for that contract. And I mean, they just invested in a wide receiver in Quentin Johnson. Who knows what they're going to do with Mike Williams? But they have to pay Bosa and Darwin James. There's a lot of pieces they got to bring back. And if they devalue running back, I don't think he's going to come back. I think he's going to be one of those guys we talk about, like a Miles Sanders or Dalvin Cook. He's just going to get moved to another place and be their superstar. I personally think he's going to produce. I still think he's going to be in the top 3 running backs this year for fantasy. If I am in a dynasty league, I might just put a feeler out there, see what I can get. But at the same time, I wouldn't be panicking on Austin Eckler. I think he's upset. That's all it is. I mean, Najee's upset too, but Najee is not going to get a contract for 2 years. So, and some other running backs, they just want to help other running backs to find their value, find their niche, and hopefully they can fix this problem. And I think Austin Eckler is going to show it. And let's not forget, Austin Eckler is a big advocate of fantasy football. He knows what it means to sit out and not be able to play. So I think
he wouldn't do that to us.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that to us. He's drafting himself for 101 in his draft, and he's going to play for sure.
See, for me, I'm a little bit lower on Eckler this year, and it's not just because of that. It's a loss of Joe Lombardi. He's seen so many targets with Lombardi. You look back at Lombardi, man. I mean, he was with Detroit for a little bit. Theo Riddick was a thing. Like, you just keep looking back, and guys like that were a thing. So It's not necessarily that I think Eckler is a bad player. I'm just worried he's not going to see the over 100 targets or anything, and that's how he gets us our fantasy points. But still, he's going to be a solid player, but I don't think I'm drafting him in the probably till after the top 5, even in redraft. I'm that concerned, but who knows? He might be able to prove me wrong.
Right, and I think that's a good point, Andy. It's like, do you take him or a guy like Bijan Robinson? Like, that's a guy that people are asking. It's like, do you take the young gun who's more than likely going to end up in the top 5 just by sheer volume, or because, like you said, if Joe Lombardi was the reason he got all those targets, is Kellen Moore going to do the same thing?
So, right, and Kellen Moore seems to be somebody that pushes the ball down the field more. So that's my main concern.
Yeah, Herbert with Moore, give me all day. I don't know about Austin Eckler, but I will still draft him at the right price. He's still a first rounder, and I think we just got to take him at face value at that point. Like I said, I don't think 100 targets, maybe 80. I don't know if that is that's a pretty big dip a little bit, depending on those. But I would like to see what he does in this offense, and hopefully he can play himself into another big contract. So,
definitely agree with you. Before we get in, I know Andy's going to ask you about DeAndre Hopkins next. Just a couple comments here. Eric says you can't pay running backs. It seems they flop after they get broke off. Sometimes need to break the curse. Come on, Austin, could be you.
Let's go, baby. I'm rooting for that too.
But I know Andy wanted to ask you about the DeAndre Hopkins situation.
Yeah.
So that's a big news. So what do we think with DeAndre Hopkins in Tennessee? I know we touched on it on a recent show, TJ, that it looked like it was going to happen for Tennessee. So how do we feel about Hopkins in Tennessee? And do we think it really affects, guys like Treylon Burks or Chig?
So I've been going back and forth with this because everybody's putting up those pictures of like Andre Johnson, Julio Jones, and Randy Moss. Titans is where wide receivers go to die, right? I don't think any of those guys had the production that Hopkins had when he was in Arizona and got cut. It just was a contract thing. So now to that point, there's a guy named Derrick Henry in the backfield. He's going to get all the carries. They're going to feed him 20 times. They might pass him the ball. I think Hopkins still gets his targets. I think he gets 10 plus targets, if that. But let's just be honest with ourselves. This is not a passing offense. This goes through the run game 100%. And as the vice president of the Chig Okonkwo fan club, I might be out of the running next year because I don't know what to do with my guy. I think him and Burks, I think they took a massive hit in value. And I'm not trying to say this. This is more redraft. I think those were the guys that you were picking those middle rounds, and you're like, okay, these are my dart throw guys that I think can help my team later because I didn't take a tight end or I didn't take a good wide receiver early. So I'm going to try and get Burks and see if he could be a wide receiver too for me. But in Dynasty, I think you hold on to them because I think they still have value. I don't think Hopkins is going to be there forever. But, man, did it hurt those values when you were hoping for those guys to be something this year? Everybody's like, well, Burks is going to get the number 2 corner. That's good if they pass a lot. And Mr. Ryan Tannehill, as much as people want to call him what he is, he's just an average quarterback. I don't think he's a spectacular guy to hold on to 2 good wide receivers. I mean, with A.J. Brown, it was just A.J. Brown and no one else. I think we're looking at the same thing with Hopkins. So,
yeah,
That's a good point.
I agree with you 110%, man. This really kills Chig. And we all know, if anyone watches the show now, I was always the president of the Chig Okonkwo fan club. Mike's the vice president.
yep.
That ticket got impeached now. We were impeached. And the ticket's laying there on the ground, and DeAndre Hopkins is pissing all over the ashes. So we got screwed out of this, man. I'll tell you what, I love Chig, but I'm like you. I was hoping that maybe high expectations he could be a low tight end 1, and it just did. I just don't see it now, man. I think he'll still be a solid tight end 2, but the targets, that DeAndre Hopkins is going to command is just insane. I mean, he still is going to probably be the alpha in that offense. How do you feel, Ian?
Chig takes a hit, and so does Burks, but I think it's good to react, but not to overreact, because I still do like Burks as long-term player. I mean, getting to play beside a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and maybe learn a little bit would definitely be good, because I know when we scouted Treylon Burks, we said, hey, this is a guy that might not hit year 1 or year 2, but we do like him in the future. So being opposite side of a Hall of Fame guy, and a lot can turn around. I mean, I projected Tennessee to be a really bad team this year. Their secondary is not good. I mean, if you look at their secondary, they're going to get points racked on them. I still like I'm a big Jeffrey Simmons guy. So I do like some of their front guys, but man, I it's tough. It does hurt you because Twitter. Twitter is all about the Burks hate. So then it just seems that his value goes down. I'm still buying low on Burks, though. Like, can you get him for a second?
Yeah.
Could you get him for another roster player that you might not be as high on? Like, I would love to move a guy like Isaiah Pacheco if I could for Burks, because I like the long outcome of a guy like Burks.
All right. And I think I'm in that dilemma right now. Like the guy in our league is giving up on Burks right away. And I'm like, well, I have all these second-year running backs. I have White, Robinson, Pacheco. I'm like, I can give him one of those guys for him. And I agree. I think learning from DeAndre Hopkins is going to help Burks in the long run. And whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Levis or I guess Malik Willis is back doing his thing, who knows? That rapport will be there. And what you said was very interesting. It was their secondary is not good, so they're going to get points scored on them. So maybe we're not looking at this correctly and saying, well, they're going to be behind. They need to throw the ball. And we know DeAndre is going to command a double team every once in a while. So maybe Burks is right by low. And not saying they're not going to give the ball to Derrick Henry, but he's probably going to get it in the first half and maybe some passing work. Again, Chig is out of the question at this point. But Burks might still be a good thing. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But honestly, though, looking at this, I will say this, like Andy said, and I think it's genius that, like, yeah, it hurts Treylon Burks and even Chig this year. But if you could get them players for way cheaper, I mean, like, if they don't come out and Hopkins just commands this high target volume this year, and they come out and they're kind of flat, maybe as a rebuilder, these are guys you could target around the deadline. If you're trading bigger pieces off, if you're getting draft capital, you could say, well, I want Treylon Burks too. That could be a player to watch, and it could be for a rebuilder. That could be a valuable asset, and that could be something valuable to have like in your knowledge bank saying, maybe give this guy a chance. He hasn't really got a fair shake yet, and it could be a nice little pickup for you.
Exactly. I mean, man, if you're a mid-tier team or a low-tier team, why not try to get these guys? Why not try these dart throws? And it won't cost you a lot. I mean, at the same time, like, people saw this and said right away, Burks is gone. But let's not forget, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is no spring chicken. So you can get Burks at a cheap price in Dynasty. And hopefully he can become something with the new quarterback. He was an alpha. He showed why he was a first-round grade last year, in my opinion. So I will try to get Burks as much as possible. So.
I think the bad part with him is he fell into the Deontay Johnson expectations. Like, Deontay Johnson had to fill in the role of Antonio Brown. Right. And I said right away, I was like, dude, this is not fair because Antonio Brown was an all-time great. There's just no way that Deontay Johnson could live up to it. Well, Tennessee shocks us and trades A.J. Brown. They draft Treylon Burks, and it's like, damn, he's falling into A.J. Brown. Like, it's just not good to compare it. Like, but that's exactly what they did.
It's not fair. And I look at this team, and I'm like, especially with the quarterback, we can't compare different things because, like, a lot of people were like, Julio did great with Roddy White, and Higgins did okay with Jamar Chase, and I'm like, well, you're talking about these wide receivers who have Hall of Fame quarterbacks with them, or do it, and it's just like Tannehill is not that guy, and this is not that offense. Let's not forget who their coach is. It's a guy who loves to run the ball down your throat, play defense. So
now I know we're more of a dynasty show, but in redraft, do you think Ryan Tannehill's a pretty good late round guy that maybe you get in a Superflex league?
Superflex, yes. I think he would be a great quarterback too. In a one quarterback league, he is not on my radar at all.
No, me either. He don't fit one quarterback for me.
No. He's a good two. I think if you're looking for a guy who could fill that two spot, if you went a little bit like a Mahomes and Allen number one, and then you filled a lot of other places, and then he's right there, you go for him. I think he'll provide some value. And I think you would also kind of go a third quarterback, get Will Levis just in case, and see what happens. So
good point.
I like it, man. Well, we're going to move over to this one. This one hits close to home for all of us, and we got to get into it, man. You know we are. Look at the stuff in Mike's background. Is there any secret to where we're going now? No. We're going to be talking about the Steelers, man. Of course, the Steelers. What do you think? How do you think they finished this year? And are you in on any of the Steelers players from a dynasty perspective?
So how are the Steelers going to finish? Now, I can give you the optimistic view or the realistic view. I don't know which one, but I'm going to try to be in between. But as long as Mike Tomlin is our coach, I know we're going to win 9 games. I know we can at least muster that up. For anybody who wants to say stuff about Kenny Pickett, fine. Do as you will. Personally, I think Kenny Pickett has the ability to grow into something that could be at least a 10, 12, 13, 14, 15-year starter that people are okay with. And I think I made the comparison of Kirk Cousins. Like, if he can be a Kirk Cousins, we have the team that can be so dynamic that we could go against the Ravens or the Bengals or any of these other teams. He just needs to be good enough. And I think that's where it is. And I know we talked about it, TJ, before the show. Look at the weapons around him. I mean, we have Deontay Johnson. As much as we like to rag on him, he's going to catch every ball you give him. I know we say drop and sin and blah, 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 but he actually has a low drop rate. It's lowering every year. He can catch it. George Pickens, I can't talk enough about this guy. You just throw it in his vicinity and it feels like he can catch it. He grows again with Pickett. And you have Najee, and you have Jalen Warren behind Najee. You have Pat, an improved offensive line. Our defense got significantly better. It didn't look like it, but I think when we have Joey Porter Jr. at corner, Patrick Peterson, a guy we talked about, just DeAndre Hopkins and Burks, how they can learn from each other. That's what we have here. TJ Watt. Nothing has to be said about him, Cam, or Minka. Like, we have the pieces. It's just really we're talking about one guy, and that's Kenny Pickett. And I think Kenny Pickett, if he takes that next step that we see with year 2 quarterbacks with great offenses, then we're going to be in business, boys. I think we make the playoffs. We can win a game or two. A lot of people are picking us as a dark horse to win the division. There's only one guy that can mess it up, and his name is Matt Canada. And I can't believe I'm saying that he's back, and I'm just going to lose my mind in week 1. But we'll see how they finish. I think personally it's 9 to 11 wins. We'll make the playoffs. I think we hit our first round, hopefully win. Second round we might lose. I think that's my expectations. Dynasty-wise, Pickens, go all in. I actually have Pat Freiermuth on my team because I have Kelsey. So once Kelsey's done, I have a tight end right behind him, and it looked like him and Pickett had a rapport. Najee, what are you going to do? I think if you could get value for him, you trade him, but I think you should keep him because the Steelers, as we talk about devaluing running backs, they're the biggest in that. They're going to run him to the ground and maybe not sign him again, and this is year 3, so we'll see. So my 2 biggest guys are Pickens, Pat, and a dark horse, Calvin Austin. We don't know what he has in the tank. He was hurt last year. He's the speedster everybody talks about. So he might be the dynamic dude that Mims or we had people like just randomly off the street to play in the slot. He can be that guy. So
very much so. I think it was Sauce Gardner said that Calvin Austin was the toughest guy he had to guard in college.
And people are talking about Sauce being the best corner in the NFL. So if that guy
yeah. Now, not saying he's the best wide receiver, but I won't go that far. I might get a little bit of hate.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll take the hate. If Sauce says it, we might have the best wide receiver in that.
Maybe he's the next Antonio Brown. We're all sitting here laughing, and by next year, we're like, wow.
Exactly.
I 100% agree, though, about Kenny Pickett, man. Kirk Cousins that can run. Because Kenny Pickett is no slouch. We know that he can run the ball. One thing I want with Kenny, though, is make sure you get down because I don't want to see him keep getting concussions. We know he dealt with did he deal with just 1 or was it 2 last year? 2. So that's definitely not a good thing.
It got thrown under the rug because of Tua, but his concussions weren't as bad. It was like more of like he got hit in the head and evaluation. So it's good. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. We need our star quarterback. If he's that good, if he becomes that guy, run, but slide. Let's slide a little down. So
none of that fake sliding bullshit he did at Pitt. That was awesome, though. That was awesome.
That was one of the greatest plays I think I've seen in NCAA. And
he made his own rule.
Woo, it's crazy. When you do something and the league says no, don't do that again. That's when you go business.
You're right. So at least if he doesn't make it as an NFL player, he'll always have that on his resume.
Absolutely.
But I think his resume will be just fine.
Absolutely. I think so.
And I agree with you, Mike. Like all the players you mentioned, I think we got to watch as a dynasty community. They're really being slept on. As a dynasty league, like in dynasty leagues, you want to try to get into some of these young teams, some of these young offenses before they really take off. If you could get lucky and hit with some of these guys on the Steelers and Kenny Pickett were to take that step, you could have really made some nice moves. We've seen it last year with Jacksonville. Detroit's kind of an offense that's on the rise a little bit. If you can knock on the door before you go through it, sometimes you can really save yourself a lot of assets.
Absolutely. And I mean, these are cheap assets. Let's be honest. I bet you could trade for Deontay pretty cheap right now. And if they give him a good contract he has like a down year, but he has that rapport, I don't see him not scoring a touchdown this year like he did last year. He's a good asset. Pickens, we talk about. Pickens and Pickett. I call him the Pick Six, which is not very a sexy name, but at the same time, I think it fits. So.
I like it.
I like it too. Like I said, I like what you said too. I do think that we're being slept on as far from a win total too, because we just broke down the AFC North on the Dynasty DNA podcast. And, looking at their schedule, there are a lot of winnable games. I mean, there's a lot of manageable wins there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? We get a tone setter right away. San Fran at home, no matter who the quarterback is, we just got to come to play because that's a good defense. So I'm excited to see what we can do against a real powerhouse team. And if we win that game like we did the Bengals game last year, hold on to your seats. Like if Pickett does well against that defense. So it's not going to get tougher than the 49ers defense for Pickett. So
Definitely.
Sure.
Well, I know Andy wants to ask you about some sleepers in Dynasty. And what do you got?
So what I'm looking for is who's a guy that you think's a sleeper for you later on in Dynasty.
So I thought long and hard about this, and I think a guy that's getting hate for some reason, and he's a guy on my team, so this is probably a biased pick. Rashard White for the Buccaneers. We just talked about Leonard not being there. We're talking about I
Love
see
it.
my Jay knows he loves it. He's guys. Fournette's not there anymore. They didn't invest any assets there, and we're talking about no Tom Brady. This is a guy who could see a lot of carries. We can see a guy who's going to get a lot of checkdowns. I mean, who's the quarterback? Is it going to be Baker? Is it going to be Gabbert? Who's it going to be? Like nobody knows. And at the same time, we have this guy who had all these touches last year, who had all these receptions, who can be dynamic. I mean, this is a guy that I'm very excited for, and I hope he can become a superstar for my dynasty team. Obviously, being biased again. But at the same time, the situation is great. They're going to be down in a lot of games. They're going to have to check it down a couple of times. I know we have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but Baker's not throwing it down this field 20, 30 times. He's going to have some checkdowns. I think White is a guy that we all as a fantasy community held our breath during the draft. And if they didn't draft anybody, we are okay. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm not worried if, like, let's say a Kareem Hunt or somebody like that comes to the team because they're going to go with the young guy. I think in the grand scheme of things, they want to show that they have a lot of pieces left. So when a new quarterback comes, him and White and Evans and Godwin can do this again that they did with Brady. So White is my guy. I'm going White.
I like it, man. I like it a lot. I know we're big Rashad White guys. That's another thing too. Like I know Tom Brady's not there, but Fournette still had 83 targets last year, and White had 58.
Yeah.
So even if he can command half of those, I mean, you're still talking 60 plus, 70 plus targets. So, and I do think he will get better. He was a rookie last year. A lot of people saying about his yards per carry, and we got to remember Wirfs was hurt for a little while as well. So
Yep.
they're going to have a more healthy offensive line. They're going to have their own problems, but I don't really see them bringing in like a Dalvin Cook or anything because I think they know, hey, we're more of a rebuild team. Like, let's see what we have in this guy in Rashad White.
Right.
And I'll tell you too, Jensen was hurt too. And
Jensen was hurt.
And I always say it, man, the running game, if you want to run it between the tackles, the meat potatoes is there between the guards and the centers, and the fact that he was hurt was a big deal. And I know, Mike, I know you got good taste. I love Rashad White. He's getting a lot of disrespect right now. And I said it, the dynasty community sometimes can be such sticklers. Like, I get it. Okay, his yards per carry wasn't the greatest. But how many times do you see a young running back that's going to possibly see the amount of volume he's going to see get this much disrespect?
Right. And let's not forget, they spent, if I'm not mistaken, a day 2 pick on him. Like, the value is there. I mean, Andy brought up a good point of the receptions with Fournette, and you guys brought up a good point with the depleted offensive line. They're all coming back, and at the same time, they have something to prove. Let's not forget, they're in the worst division, I think, in football. Like,
oh yeah,
they could win that division if Baker does enough, and their defense is still pretty good, in my opinion. So, Rashard White could be a sleeper in redraft too, but in Dynasty, if you have him, my opinion, keep him and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a good gamble to keep him. I'm with you because I think what you're going to see from Rashad White is a solid running back too. And if the catches are there, maybe, just maybe, he's hovering around that top 12. I wouldn't say he would go into the top 10, but he might be around 12 or 13 or 14. And that's one heck of a running back too to have on your roster.
Yep. And in my team right now, I have Christian McCaffrey, so I don't need a RB1. I just need somebody to help me in that 2 spot. So
Right.
And
yeah.
I think like Andy said with the catches, he might be an awesome option. And we've seen other guys that can catch the ball be around a long time.
Yep.
J.D. McKissick, James White. I mean, at least they've always held some kind of fantasy value. Yeah, they might not be one of these home run hitter running back ones, but they're always someone like when you have injuries, it's like, oh, thank God I have them.
Exactly. And that's the
Yep.
thing we're talking about, insurance pieces that you need to know their value and what they're doing. And I think this offense has proven that White can do it, and I'm excited to see what he brings. And I think you're right. Like, he's a good emergency break glass if everybody gets hurt. So
Definitely. And Eric just said in the comments, just got to keep Baker out of the commercials and in the playbooks.
I'm with him. Forget those progressive commercials. I'm with him.
Yeah, because he always says his home's a stadium. He don't really have a home anymore. He's been bouncing around.
Raymond James now, I guess, but
I guess he could do like a commercial in a mobile home or something because he's always on the move.
him moving away to Tampa, I love it.
But
Now a guy I'm gonna go over Elijah Moore real quick. That's my guy.
Like it. I'm actually clapping that one up.
Nice. So how I feel, I know TJ and I, we were really high on his film. He gets a draft capital, goes 34 overall in a 21 draft, only 23 years old. And it looks like him and Watson have a connection. Now, I'm not the biggest Watson fan, not the biggest Cleveland fan. It's not even a bias thing. It just seems like every year Cleveland's going to go to the Super Bowl, and they just always underperform. I don't think it's completely different. Sorry, Cleveland. I don't think it's going to be completely different, but I do like Elijah Moore. So I think he's going to play a lot in the slot, and that's where he's going to eat. He has really high agility, his agility rating. So I don't know, man. How do you guys feel about Elijah Moore? I think he could be on the verge of a mini breakout this year, possibly sneaking into a late wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3, and we're getting him way down there.
I like it because I'm not the biggest Watson fan, and I went to the University of Akron. I know exactly what people are saying about the Cleveland Browns every year, and it's every year about that stuff. But we saw Elijah Moore break out his rookie year. I mean, he was my flex option late in the year, and he was great. And I think if he's put in the great situation that he is now, and Deshaun Watson is the quarterback he was in Houston, he can be that good wide receiver too that you can rely on. I mean, Amari Cooper is the alpha. Let's not forget that. But they're going against the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going against us. They're going against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, outside of the division, they're going against the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks. They're going to be in some shootouts. And I think Elijah Moore providing that secondary option with like an Njoku and Cooper, I think it's great. I think that is a great pick, Andy, honestly. And if I'm not going for him because I don't do Browns players or Bengals or Ravens players, but if you want to go get Elijah Moore, more power. But
I just like winning money. I'm playing. But I think another thing that we need to look at it too, and this is kind of why I lean towards Elijah, is they didn't bring back Kareem Hunt. And we seen whenever Watson came in, all they wanted to do was pass. And it seems like Nick Chubb's he's one of the best. I mean, I hate to say it, but literally he's one of the best, if not the best pure runner in the NFL. And he came off hot with Jacoby Brissett. And then whenever Watson was there, we seen throwing. I think that's what the Browns are going to do. And not having Kareem Hunt there, I mean, who are they going to roll with? Jerome Ford? I mean, not really proven. So
I'm exactly with you. I mean, that offense is going through Watson. They want to prove Watson was the guy who they traded for. Because if he doesn't pan out, we're going to see another cycle of GM and coach getting fired. So,
yeah, and I like Elijah Moore, and I'll tell you where I specifically like him is in best ball.
yep.
The fact that you can get him as late as you can get him, I think that's a great player to get in leagues like that. And also, I mean, Dynasty. I mean, hey, what you're getting him at now compared to what you would have got him at the start of last year, I think it's a good gamble.
Right. I think that's a great idea. I mean, in best ball, we talk about the guys who can do what you just said, TJ. I think you just have a gamble on him. He's going to go pretty late in there. I think he could be a guy that, you know what? Here's an 80-yard bomb right now from Deshaun Watson. There you go. And you just got the points you needed. So
Definitely. The guy's an athlete.
He's an amazing athlete. I mean, A.J. Brown said he was the best athlete, best wide receiver to come from Ole Miss. And it was him and DK Metcalf that went there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Pretty good compliment. And before we move on, my one was David Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
I really like David Montgomery, even in the Jamal Williams role. See, like I think a lot of people are approaching this wrong. Like I really like Gibbs. I think he's an electric talent, but he still is a rookie. And I do think they're going to utilize him a lot more in the receiving game than people think. I think that, yeah, he's going to get some touches coming out of the backfield, but I think he's going to be mainly used in a receiving role, especially early on. And like I said, Jamal Williams finished running back 7 last year?
Yeah.
So if David Montgomery can get that role and even replicate 2/3 of what he did as a running back too, I think he's a great option this year.
I love it. I am a big Devon. I'm going for Montgomery more than I am Gibbs in most leagues. So I think he's going to be a great goal line back, and he's a great flex play. I think he's in dynasty and redraft. I think if you could get anything from that, and a lot of people say follow the money. Look at how much he made. I don't think he's going to there and just get 10 touches. I think he's going to be part of this offense.
I was shocked that they drafted Gibbs and as high as what they did too.
And the way they reacted, they were like, you thought they just got the newborn baby Jesus.
Yeah. Well, we all sat back and laughed because they drafted a running back that high. But I do love Gibbs for dynasty. I do. I'm more like you guys though. I don't want to draft Gibbs and where he's going to late 2nd, early 3rd round in startups. I'd rather just wait later and get Montgomery, and I'll figure the rest out too.
And I think you draft him with expectations. Like if you get David Montgomery in a startup dynasty draft as your running back 3, I think you're doing great, man. And that's where he's going in a lot of cases.
That's the thing. You get these guys who have low expectations, but maybe could help you win some games that you didn't think you could win. Those bye weeks can hurt. I know I have a week where I have 2 of my starting running backs. I look at my dynasty schedule. I'm like, okay, David Montgomery would fit perfectly in those weeks. So
definitely, man.
So this came up kind of a little bit on the fly. All right, so we're kind of talking about Gibbs. So guys like Barkley and Jacobs, who are possible holdouts, you trading them guys for Gibbs straight up?
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I don't think. I mean, I think I am. I'd rather have Gibbs personally. I just don't even want to put up with a headache. He's young. Love the offense.
I'm saying no for Saquon, but I'm saying yes for Jacobs.
That's just what I was going to say, Mike. You're on the same wavelength as I
think we're making where I think this is blown out of a little proportion. I think with at least New York, this is what they do all the time. They're going to pay Barkley. At some point, they're going to come to agreement. I just think Jacobs is that tarnished everything, and I don't know where he's going to go. And I'm worried. I'm so worried. And you're right.
Right.
Rather than the non-headache, which is Gibbs and Montgomery, like I said, it's like DeAndre Hopkins. He's not going to be there forever. So I would love Gibbs for Jacobs straight up if somebody gave me that offer.
That'd be nice. I don't know if that would get it done. I don't know, but.
Hey, if anyone has any Raiders fans in the league, I think that's something you might want to try.
Know your league mates.
That's right.
That's right.
Next question I want to ask you, Mike. Who is your favorite late round rookie dart throw out of this 2023 class? Who are you looking at in rounds, maybe 3 through 5? Who's someone you might like, maybe you believe in a little bit, you might get some production out of?
So I think this is going to get me booted off Twitter, and probably a lot of your comments are going to go crazy. But everybody's looking for the next big tight end, right? So everybody knows, Kincaid, Laporta, and all those guys and what they're doing. I'm going Luke Musgraves for the Green Bay Packers. I think.
Woo!
Now
we did it. We did it.
This guy has chemistry with Jordan. Listen, this is all camp report, but he has chemistry with Love already. There's no other tight ends there outside of Watson who we have to worry about. Romeo Dobbs. Jalen Reed might be a thing. But I think Musgraves has that body type. Could be like a Jimmy Graham. Like Jimmy Graham when he had those insane stat lines of 5 catches, 10 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Give me that all day for a rookie tight end. And if Love is the guy that they drafted in the first round, guys, we might see the next best tight end and quarterback pairing. I mean, your dog loves the pick too. I can believe it. Like I have him in my taxi squad position right now, and I think Musgrave is going to be somebody that we're going to look back and be like, wow, next year he's going to have that Pitts hype. He's going to have that Evan Ingram hype. He might have that. He might have that. I am just in love with this guy and this. I'm in love with the Packers somehow. I don't know why. I just wrote on Twitter about Jones and Dillon being top 25 running backs this year. I'm just enamored by this offense. So Musgrave is my guy. He is my dart throw. So hopefully he turns out to be good.
Hey, I love it. Luke Musgrave held strong as my tight end too. I do have some Laporta, but he's still in there as my tight end too as well. So I really like his opportunity. It looked like you said, Love and him have some chemistry already, and I think he's going to surprise some people. But we do have to be patient. He is a tight end, and it could take a little bit of time. So,
yep, I'd rather have him than Shoemaker. I think that's his name for Dallas.
Oh yeah.
I'd rather have him. So if I had to pick between those late round tight ends, that Musgrave would be the guy I'd wait and see. And I think we know what that offense can bring to a tight end. So I mean, look at Robert Tonyan did.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. So this guy has pedigree. This guy has a great kind of like size, weight, speed. He's going to be a matchup nightmare for some teams.
Definitely,
yeah, I love it.
Definitely agree with that, man. Mine was Deuce Vaughn. I like Deuce Vaughn because I'm looking for like big plays, electricity. You know, if I'm going to waste a draft pick, and a lot of times that's what you're doing with these late rounds, usually I'm going to try to go for the fence if I can.
Absolutely. And hey, great story. Gets drafted to his dad's team, who was a scout. So Deuce Vaughn is going to be a thing. I mean, we all talked about Zeke, but he's the second running back, in my opinion. He's going to be the guy right behind Pollard. So yeah, I'm ready to see what he can do.
Definitely. And I know Andy's going to finish you off with the last question about player of value ADP. Ann?
So, yeah, who are you favoring at ADP right now? So basically, not necessarily a sleeper, but just somebody you like where they're going. So every time, like how I always say it is, I see this guy's name, I'm like, boy, I just smile. I just hit the pick button.
So I do the hand rub. I do this every time I see this. As we talk about offenses that we want pieces of and people who are taking that next step and people are loving it. Christian Kirk, like, what are we doing? Like, I think a lot of people are putting too much emphasis on their Calvin Ridley. I love Calvin Ridley. I have him on my Dynasty team. I will draft him at a perfect ADP for him. But we're talking about the wide receiver 11 last year with a quarterback who's taking the next step. Like, in an offense that is Doug Peterson's, like, he loves to throw the football. We saw what he could do. I mean, I love Christian Kirk because we said follow the money kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he continues to grow. He continues to get to where he needs to be. He was all over the place last year. I think him and T-Law having that rapport, where he's going pretty late. I think he's going as, if I'm not mistaken, like as low as wide receiver like 27. Like, not a lot of people are looking at him as a wide receiver 1. And if you get him as your wide receiver 3 or a late wide receiver 2, I'd be ecstatic to have Christian Kirk on my team. I think he just proves everybody wrong. So, yeah, Christian Kirk. I can't say enough about that guy.
Yeah, I love it. And he's got such a chemistry with Lawrence, man. And he is being so undervalued. Like you said, a lot of people, when he got that contract, it was, Christian Kirk, how could you pay him that much? But I will give Jacksonville credit. They knew what they were doing. They knew what kind of capacity they wanted to use him in. And hey, so far he's earning that contract.
Of course. And then we add Ridley. It can only be better for him because I think Ridley will command something from the defenses. And I think we talk about quarterbacks who can handle 2 top 25 wide receivers. I think Lawrence can. I think Lawrence can make these 2 guys go. And I think Kirk is not going to go away just because Ridley is back on the field. I think Kirk is going to have that. Now, talk about a guy who's going to have a good week 1 to week 5 while Ridley gets up to speed. Kirk is going to have some games where you're going to be like, man, should I trade for him? Should I have him? Like, that's trade him away, you know? So he's young, too.
That's a great point.
So.
Great point. I've recently said that it's almost like, to me, Trevor Lawrence is the LeBron James of football. He makes people around him better.
Yep.
I really think Trevor Lawrence took a huge step last year, and it shows coaching matters.
Yep.
And I think he's going to take another step this year. He did a great thing in locking up a guy like Evan Ingram. They got that deal done. That was the only deal that got done. So
It's crazy. And even Ingram was so happy to be back. And I like that comparison because he was considered like the number one pick and no one else. Like there's no debate about it. Like you said, coaching matters. I mean, I talk about it all the time. Is Patrick Mahomes without Andy Reid?
right.
It's a crazy statement, but at the same time, it's true a little bit because we see what happened with Russell with his situation with Nathaniel Hackett. He was
Yep.
a great quarterback in Seattle. Now he had an off year. So it's I think with T Law, this offense, we're looking at a new like we talked about a team that could step up into that upper echelon of teams. This could be one of them. I think this is one of those teams. Christian Kirk is going to be a focal point in this offense for sure.
I
love
agree.
it.
I think it's wheels up for Jacksonville. And if you can get into that offense now on better pricing, definitely try to do it if you can manage it.
Yeah.
I'll say my one player, man, and me and Andy talk about this all the time. It's getting a lot of disrespect. Is Deebo Samuel. I mean, I know he's 27 years old, but it's not like he's ancient news or anything. And the guy had a bad season last year. He'll be the first to tell you, I did not play as well as I wanted to play. And he said, I'm going to be better this year. And like I said during one of our shows when we brought up Deebo, I think in the mock draft where I drafted him, which was like in the middle fifth round, somewhere like that. He said, you know what? I'm going to be better. I'll put my chips on him. I think he's going to have a lot better season. You're talking about a guy that can touch the ball in so many capacities. They can line him up at tailback. They can throw screens to him. They can run gadgets to him. They can throw the ball to him in a traditional receiver fashion, so I think he's going to be a lot better. What do you guys think about Deebo?
So my opinion on Deebo, it's no matter who the quarterback is, like you said, they can use him in so many facets of the game. It's not like he runs a go route and he has to get the ball or like he has to run a post. You can put him in the backfield with McCaffrey. You can put McCaffrey outside and him in the backfield. You can put him as the quarterback if you really wanted it to. Like with Kyle Shanahan and him being the wide receiver one, I'm all in on Deebo Samuels too. That's a great point, TJ, because I see him going behind like people like DK Metcalf and people like even like there was one, I don't know if this was a lot of 49ers hate, but Michael Pittman got picked before him. And I was like, this is we're getting a little crazy here because one guy has an established name and pedigree and then we're picking Michael Pittman. No, Deebo's great.
Yeah. So. Yeah. To your point, I just pulled up that mock draft. Quentin Johnson, DJ Moore, Christian Watson all went before Deebo Samuel. I got him at 5'10". In a dynasty startup.
Yeah, that's good. Good value. I'm
great.
like you. He's gonna be the focal point between him and Kittle, and I do think Ayuk's so good. He is, and he proved that this year when Debo was banged up that he really stepped up to the occasion. If it is Brock Purdy, we know Debo is more famously known for his yak ability, so that's what they're gonna try to do is get him on these slants. Get him on these digs, these little out routes, and let him eat.
Yep. And you have the offensive lineman to do it. You have the blocking tight end that I hate saying, George Kittle, because they use him more as a blocking tight end, and I hate it every single time. Why I traded him away in Dynasty. So Deebo is great. Deebo is great, and I think if you can get him at a great value in a startup Dynasty league and be your wide receiver 2 or 3, you're running around in circles and telling your league mates you're idiots. So
I like it, Mike. I like it. Do you have a player, Ann, you want to talk about real quick or not?
Yeah, my guy. I'm just gonna take a layup here. It's Najee Harris. So I consistently I see him, in the late third, early fourth, and I'm smiling and I'm hitting the draft button and kicking back, taking a drink of my water, and I'm happy. So
I'm happy.
I'm doing the same thing. If I got Najee in the third, fourth round, of course.
now I don't know. Hopefully he's still going there. This is a lot of like underdogs I was in. Recently I got him. Yeah, I think recently I got him at the end of the third, so it came up a little, but still, man, I think he has the ability to be a top 5 back next year or this year.
Sure volume. We talk about sure volume. He gets receptions. He gets the carries. I mean, Jalen Warren does spell him here and there, but so that's the name of the game now these days. And we have an improved offensive line, and we talked about it already. Kenny Pickett goes, that offense goes, and he's one of the people. He got it way better at the end of the season because he got healthy and Kenny grew and the offensive line grew together. So a new offseason, a new offensive line. I think we're going to have – I think Najee is going to make a lot of people look stupid for not taking him.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I almost think the AFC North was last year's AFC West. How everybody wanted in on Kansas City, the Raiders, the Broncos. The Broncos are supposed to be the best, which I'm in on the Broncos this year, but everything is supposed to be just perfect. But I do think there's going to be a lot of shootouts and a lot of dynasty assets, redraft assets that I want for this year.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I mean, the AFC North is a gold mine. You have two great quarterbacks in Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. You have one of the best wide receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. The list goes on and on. I don't even have to name all of them. But if you're an AFC North player, you're going to be happy. So
Definitely. Well, this is going to do it for this episode, guys. We had a lot of good constructive talk here. We're going to have a lot of things coming up. I mean, we're getting closer for our Dynasty DNA normal show we do. We're going to be getting closer to rankings. And when the season comes, we're going to have some announcements to make. We're going to have some big stuff happening. You're going to see people like Mike and some of the other people we had on this show be involved a lot more throughout the week with Dynasty DNA. So just a little teaser for you. We're going to keep you posted. But Mike, man, we appreciate having you on. We really love your insights. I mean, you're a great sports mind in general, but especially fantasy. I always like picking your brain. Like I said, we're like on a wavelength. I'm like sitting there. I'm like, man, he likes all the players I like. So
that's why we're never going to be in a draft together, because you'll steal my players and I'll steal.
The sniping will be real.
The sniping will be real. It's like, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And I just, but boys, appreciate you guys putting me on. I enjoy your guys' content, and I thank you so much for letting me come on here and speak fantasy football in a great setting. And like everybody, please like their channel. Please subscribe to them. They're the best. So you're going to see some articles from me and my stuff later on. But again, boys, thank you again. This was awesome.
Thank you, man. It's been so much fun talking with you.
Absolutely. And if you want to follow Mike on Twitter, again, follow him over there at Shanu471. It's one of the best follows on Twitter. He always coming out with entertaining stuff. And go over, if you want to listen to his podcast and some of the stuff he does, go over to the Four Corners Radio on Spotify and the Face of the Franchise, right? Face of the Franchise.
And Joey, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. You won't be disappointed. I listened to that show a couple of times, and I'll tell you what, man, I'm always entertained. So I love
it. Sneak peek, awesome. New episode being recorded tomorrow. We'll release it Thursday or Friday. So just for the listeners out there who wants to get new content. So
definitely, guys, go over there and listen to that. You won't be disappointed. And as Mike said, dynastydna.net. He's always coming up with great articles for fantasy stuff over there as well. But this is going to do it for episode 3 of the Dynasty DNA Fantasy Football Summer Camp. And we'll see you guys all next time.
See you, everyone.
See ya.